Royal Enfield has enjoyed a monopoly in the 350cc segment, but now Honda has woken up and provided a challenger. Strongly based on the Enfield's design, yet with more power and features like traction control, LED headlamps, and an overall lightweight motorcycle, can Honda dethrone the classic 350? This is not a specs comparison, this is a road test in city, corners, and highways. This review is not influenced by RE or Honda in any way. They haven't seen the video before its release.
So as you can see, the Highness, I feel it leans a little bit better. I've been riding the Royal Enfield Classic 350 BS6 2021 edition for the last 3 days, and now switched to the Highness. Both are pretty upright, but the differences are that the Highness feels much more easier to flick. Like there is a bad situation here, so you just flick it. Easy to flick motorcycle. On the Enfield, it's not so easy to quickly flick through. You can see he's leaning that bike quite well. It's not that that bike cannot be leaned into corners, it's just that this bike's more flickable, and the moment you get up on this bike, you will feel the 14 kgs of weight savings that this bike has achieved. It's 181 kgs curb weight, whereas the other one, the Royal Enfield, is 195 kgs. That's all metal, very heavily built motorcycle, but you can see the difference. That does feel more premium, the bike, when you touch it and when you're riding. Everything feels more premium, but this one feels lighter. The Highness feels like a commuter on steroids. The sitting position is very comfortable, and I'd give this motorcycle better in the ergonomics, because when you ride it you will feel that the Enfield is having a little bit lower handlebars, which is not uncomfortable, but it's slightly more committed. And this one with the upright bars and a very relaxed sitting position, for my height, at least 5 feet 8, I find this bike to be offering a more upright and more relaxed sitting position. However, seat comfort wise, that bike's ahead. It has a better seat. Pillion comfort wise, both the bikes are excellent, but the Royal Enfields are always a notch above seating comfort wise. As you can see, he's playing around with this bike a lot more. The handling has improved on the Enfields, and the new frame is really giving it handling that Enfields could at one point only dream about. The Highness feels a little bit faster.
The word slightly is an understatement.
We're doing about 120 now.
As we tested out the bikes in a drag later that day, we found out that the Highness really embarrasses the Royal Enfield. Notice the difference in power is only 0.6 horsepower, but the Highness delivers its peak power at a lower RPM, and the Honda also has 3 Newton more of torque, again at a significantly lower RPM. That, combined with the 14 kg lower weight, really seals the deal for the Highness. I also feel Honda sneaked in a larger size sprocket, but I'm not sure, so don't quote me on that one. The difference may be 0.6 horsepower on paper, but it feels like 6 horsepower when you ride the bikes back to back. The difference between the two bikes reduce in higher speeds of say 80 to 100 km per hour, and the top speed of Highness was around 130 km per hour, which is 10 km more than the classic 350. The Enfield has better mid-corner stability, which is due to its curvier tire profile in comparison to the Highness tires, which look like stolen from a vintage car. Great for straight line stability, not so much for cornering. But the Highness feels more flickable in low speed. Couple that with the low end torque and the zippy acceleration, it is a much superior bike in city traffic. You won't require frequent gear shifts on either of the motorcycles, but if you mainly ride within the city, the Highness makes a lot more sense. Of course, people in India don't buy a 350cc motorcycle just to ride it in the city, they have aspirations for tour as well. We took both the bikes to the highway. We rode a total of 150 kilometers and we found that Royal Enfield feels more planted and the engine feels more relaxed in cruising at about 80 to 100 kilometers per hour. It also has less vibrations on the handlebars compared to the Highness in those speeds, but footpeg vibration is slightly more. However, the engine really starts losing steam after 100 and struggles to attain a top speed of 120 km per hour, which feels like the absolute limit. But the Highness feels more rev happy and easily crosses 120 km per hour, finally to hit the top speed at 130 km per hour. I held cruising speed of 120 km per hour for 20 minutes constantly on the Highness and the engine was not complaining. On the Enfield, at 120, I felt guilty for pushing the engine so hard. I would, however, note that the engine of the Royal Enfield had only 350 kilometers on it up to that point, but the Highness has run considerably more and has been properly broken in, so that can be a small factor. Yet there is no denying that the Highness is faster and has a better top speed.
The bike sits really well on the tarmac, and that's partially due to the weight and mostly due to the frame. The frame's pretty stable, and the Highness, over such undulations, because the Highness has a more suspension travel, I feel, so it gets a little more upset, especially it jumps up quite a bit. This bike, maybe due to the weight or the suspension, but it kind of sits over and manages those well. But when the road condition is a little bit sketchy, like you have off-road riding conditions or riding over gravel or really bad and broken sections of tarmac, the Highness actually fares better.
However, even the rear suspension of Royal Enfield is pretty soft, so on the seat or for your pillion, the ride quality will be super comfortable.
There is a very thin rear tire. Now, when I'm looking for a motorcycle with highway stability, 120 rear section tire isn't the thing that I'm ideally looking for, because even 150cc motorcycles these days have 150 millimeters rear section tires or 140 section tires. I mean, I understand this is a very big wheel. The wheel size is big and that does add to the stability, but we have imperfect road conditions everywhere in India, and a wider contact patch of tire is I feel that's something that's a minimum requirement. So we're approaching the corner at over 100 kilometers per hour, 110, and despite having the car, we maintained quite a good speed. Initially, when I was riding the Highness, because the front end is so light, I was feeling that it'll be wobbly in the corners, but after taking it through a few ones, I would say that Honda has done a really good job on the frame. It is very light, and as you can see, the turning radius is also smaller compared to the Enfield, and it's really flickable in the light speeds, but when you're doing the high speed corners, the steering really weighs up, so you can carry a lot of corner speed, which I wasn't expecting out of the Highness. The RS, the CB350 RS, which shares the same engine and the chassis but has a much wider tire, I knew that bike to be very good in the corners, but this time even the Highness has surprised me in the initial acceleration. So that's one department where the Highness dominates. Another department where it dominates are the brakes. I can easily late brake on that one with a lot of confidence that the bike will stop. Not so much on this.
In the list of features, the Highness easily edges out the competition. It comes with LED headlamps compared to the halogen on the Enfield. The digital part of the console is much bigger and easier to read on the Highness. Also, it has a gear position indicator that the Royal Enfield misses out on. The classic digital meter is too small and the fuel meter isn't very accurate. Also, you have to cycle through odometer and trip meter just to see the clock, whereas on the Highness the clock is always visible. Honda also comes with a basic traction control. Royal Enfield doesn't offer that. One accessory feature of the Royal Enfield is the tripometer, which offers turn-by-turn navigation. We love the simple yet functional unit and we have tested on the Meteor. Here it comes as an extra, but that option is there. It, however, doesn't give any notifications from your cell phone. Honda offers Bluetooth connectivity with your phone, which gives you call, receive or reject options and music playback, but the app is not so well designed and it doesn't have the important navigational features that every biker wants to use on a tour. Fit and finish is a department where Enfield scores higher than the Highness. The paint quality is way better and everywhere you look or touch, the bike has a very premium retro feel, which is appealing to the buyers in this segment. In comparison, Highness fit and finish levels are just a little bit better than a premium commuter, and we have had some paint quality issues on the Honda Highness. Customization is another department where Royal Enfield is miles ahead. They let you design your own bike with a lot of factory fitted accessories and they have a very nice fluidic app for it, and they deliver the bike even with a customized name badge. Cruiser lovers enjoy this level of personalization. Both the bikes have a lot of color options, but here also the classic edge is ahead. Honda has built a reputation of being a reliable engine and an overall better build quality, and it's no different here. But big wing motorcycles are available only in a few select cities, whereas Royal Enfield probably has a dealership in your grandfather's village. They also have a countrywide service network, whereas you can't get big wing bikes serviced in regular Honda service stations. So your service station options are very limited at this point. If you decide to buy the Classic listening to all these positives, you might have to wait 1.5 months to 2 months because Royal Enfield has always had a longer wait time, and sometimes it can even go further, increasing the customer's frustrations. Honda, on the other hand, will deliver you the bike if there is stock instantly or within the next 20 to 25 days of your booking. The previous generation of the Classic was a seriously outdated motorcycle which didn't even come with a fuel gauge. The engine vibrated so much that cruising over 80 km per hour caused nerve damage, but it sold millions of units. Eicher Moto's stock price went from Rs 200 to 30,000 over the last 10 years. This new Classic 350 is a motorcycle that I actually enjoyed riding. If they could sell so many bikes with those standards, I can only imagine how much more they can do with their new bikes. Also, their exports to the US and Canada market is increasing, where these bikes are considered a really budget-oriented option. The Classic 350 will probably outsell the Highness CB350 in 4:1 ratio. But the ever-expanding 350cc segment is now 1 million motorcycles a year, and 20% of 1 million is a lot of motorcycles. Honda is here to stay, and those who are looking beyond soul and a royal feel have a real alternative.